So there's something interesting that's happening with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. They both have appealed. So let me first start by asking a question to all of you out there. Why did Johnny Depp appeal the verdict, right? Most people say, well, he won. He won. Well, why would he appeal? And I want to make it very clear why he appealed. So we're going to talk about the why he appealed and why it makes sense and all that type of stuff. So I want to definitely get into that. Let's talk about the appeal. So Johnny Depp filed a notice of appeal and Amber Heard filed a notice of appeal. So let's start with a quick recap. Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard for defamation, and Amber Heard then sued Johnny Depp for defamation in what's known as a countersuit. Now, after the 6-week trial, we all know what happened, right? Depp was awarded $10.35 million in damages. Amber Heard was awarded $2 million in damages. Now, that's important. Amber Heard did win $2 million for her defamation claim, and Johnny Depp won $10 million for his defamation claim. Now, Amber Heard and her lawyers have been saying they were going to appeal. Right after the judgment came down, they were out there saying, we're going to appeal, we're going to appeal, we're going to appeal. And then they filed the notice of appeal. Now, that wasn't the actual appeal, but it was just saying, hey, we are going to appeal, and we're giving the court notice that we're going to appeal, and Johnny Depp's side, we're going to appeal. Here's the official notice. And that appeal is obviously, that notice for appeal is to overturn the $10.35 million judgment, Johnny Depp's judgment. Now, during the appeals process, now this is where everyone's getting confused. I'm going to try to break it down. I know there's some lawyers saying one thing, some lawyers saying another thing. This is what it is. I don't care what anybody else is telling you. This is what it is. So during the appeals process, right, Amber Heard is going to appeal, and during that process of her appealing, Johnny Depp can execute his $10.35 million judgment. That means he can go and start collecting on that money, what's owed to him. The way Virginia does it is that they don't allow somebody to just sit back and wait during the appeals process. Because if I won the trial, right, let's think about this trial. It's been about 2 years for Johnny Depp to get the trial, and then after a 6-week trial, you've won. If someone could just appeal and hold your money up for another 2 years, that wouldn't be fair to you, right? That wouldn't be fair to you. So Virginia says, okay, well, listen, if you appeal, you got to give that money up, right? You can't just now keep holding it up, because like 90% of appeals don't even work anyway. So why are we going to hold his money up for an appeal that likely is not going to win? So Virginia says, okay, if you don't want the person to collect, put up an appeal bond. Put up what's known as a suspension bond. So essentially, if Amber wants to stop Johnny Depp from collecting that $10.35 million, she can do it by posting what's known as a suspension bond. And the suspension bond is essentially what it says. You're asking for the court to suspend Johnny from being able to collect that money. Now, to do this, right, to stop Johnny from being able to collect during the appeals process, Amber would have to put up the full $10.35 million plus 6% interest. And she's got to give that to the court, and the court's going to hold that. And when the court holds that money, it's essentially whoever wins that appeal gets that cash. And Johnny would not be able to then, do all this, to execute the judgment on Amber, because the money's already there. Now, Amber's attorney's already said she don't got that money. So I don't think she's putting up an appeal bond. But a lot of people were saying in commentary that Amber, and I want to be very clear, a lot of people were conflating this thing that Amber Heard needed to post the $10.35 million to be able to appeal. And that's not the case. She's able to appeal whether or not she posts that $10.35 million. But whether Johnny Depp is able to collect that money from her or execute that judgment against her, that's what the appeal bond is. That, I think, was the amount of confusion that was going on out there. Now, I want to be very clear. Amber does not have to pay that $10.35 million to the court for the appeal. She only has to post that amount to stop Johnny from collecting on the judgment. But now, a lot of the commentators for this issue have forgotten one thing. Amber has a $2 million judgment against Johnny Depp. So she's got $2 million. She's got a judgment too. And this leads us back to the question I kind of posed at the beginning of this conversation, is that why did Johnny Depp appeal? Well, that's because Amber has a $2 million judgment against him. And there is a chance, even though I think it's a small chance, I don't think it's really going to happen, that there is a small chance Amber Heard can win her appeal. And let's say get a new trial or get it overturned. And if that happens, let's say that was to happen. If Amber Heard won her appeal, then you could have a scenario where Amber Heard gets a new trial and Johnny's $10.35 million judgment is gone. But in this scenario, if Johnny doesn't appeal her judgment, her $2 million judgment, then she would still be good. She would still have the $2 million judgment. So his 10.3 would be gone, and then she can start collecting on her judgment, right? And if you don't appeal within a certain time, you waive that right. So Johnny essentially had no choice but to appeal the $2 million, because if she wins, then she would be able to collect the $2 million from him, and his $10 million would be gone. So strategically, he had to appeal her $2 million judgment soon as she put the notice in to appeal his judgment. So Depp's lawyers filed their notice of appeal the day after Amber's team filed her notice of appeal. They did it the next day. And that makes sense, right? It's like you do it on day one. The next day, I'm filing mine too, because I don't want to be left holding the bag. The strength of the appeals are interesting. I think Johnny Depp's appeal is stronger than Amber Heard's appeal for two reasons. Number one, I think Amber Heard's appeals, they're essentially First Amendment appeals, right? First Amendment, which are good, but I think a lot of those have been reconciled with the Virginia Supreme Court. So I think her appeal is a little weak in that sense. And obviously she's going to throw in the jury stuff. And we've seen a little bit of her appeal in her post-trial motions, because that's essentially what that was. That was her appeal. That was her first shot at the appeal with the judge, and now she's going to go up. The second appeal part I want to talk about is Johnny Depp's appeal. I think his appeal has better legs to it, and the reason why, I think, is because Johnny Depp's appeal is about whether he can be held liable for an independent contractor's words. So essentially, the jury said Johnny Depp is being held liable for what Adam Waldman said, and Adam Waldman's an independent contractor. So that attachment of Johnny Depp's liability to someone else making a statement about him, that I think is a live issue. Now, the appeals court may say, hey, it's the jury is done, it's done. But I think that's a relevant legal issue that I think Johnny could win. But on the backside, I think Amber's appeal is weak. But again, appeals generally are for losers. So I wouldn't be surprised if both sides lost. But we'll see. Just imagine the irony. If Johnny Depp wins and Amber Heard loses the appeal, that would be interesting. Or the reverse. So this case is kind of far from over until the appeals court speaks. And you're going to have about another year with that. And let's think about this too. What about the insurance company? Do you think the insurance company, because now the insurance company is like, we want to get out of this, right? We don't want to pay nothing, right? She lost. You got Travelers, who's already out $8 million. Then you have the other insurance company, New York Marine, she got $1 million policy with, but they're saying, well, she willfully did that. She did that intentionally. So why should we be in the hook for that? And then let's not forget, you got to pay for lawyers still. You got to pay court fees. You got to pay for those transcripts, which is probably going to be between $50,000 and $100,000. So there's a lot of money involved in this appeal, right? On both sides. Another question I'd like to ask you guys. Do you think Johnny should post the bond, the $2 million bond, or should he not? Because don't forget, Amber can still collect her $2 million from Johnny. Does Johnny post the bond with the 6%? Who knows, right? Would you? Now that's interesting, right? It's interesting because she owes you 10, you owe her 2, and she can kind of separately collect on your 2, and you trying to collect on her 10. It's like it's a weird situation, but that's Virginia law. And we've got some more stuff coming out about this case. Let me let you guys listen to this Kate Moss piece. So yesterday, Kate Moss did a radio interview with BBC, and she was talking about why essentially she testified on behalf of Johnny Depp. Now her testimony was like quick, right? They didn't even ask any questions. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And she was there to dispel the rumor that Johnny Depp threw her down the stairs, because Amber Heard put it out there that, I heard Kate Moss in the stairs, and automatically my sister was, protect my sister from being thrown down the stairs. So that's why they brought Kate Moss in, because they were like, she made the inference that Johnny Depp had thrown Kate Moss down the stairs, and then Kate Moss had to come and say, well, no, that there was no rumor, that absolutely didn't happen. I don't even know where she's got that from. So let me play Kate Moss's interview.
Industry supported you at the time, and you've done the same for them. In 2011, you backed your friend John Galliano after he was found guilty of racist abuse. You also testified on behalf of your former partner Johnny Depp in his recent libel trial. Those gestures could have backfired on you. What made you come out on their behalf?
I believe in the truth, and I believe in fairness and justice. I know that John Galliano is not a bad person. He had an alcohol problem, and people turn. People aren't themselves when they drink, and they say things that they would never say if they were sober. I know the truth about Johnny. I know he never kicked me down the stairs. I had to say that truth.
So that's it. She had to say that truth. And it's interesting because with the lies that Amber has told, right, the repeated lies and the multiple lies, it's fascinating to see that the truth is something that you have to kind of fight for, right? In this instance, she had to, it's like there was some anxiety with telling the truth. She obviously did the right thing in coming forward and saying, this obviously didn't happen. This woman's lying. And I think all the other lies, it's just made it even more appalling that she would lie about someone else's experience and turn something where Johnny Depp helped her into trying to make it seem like he was some monster and throwing her down the stairs. Recently, for those of you who don't know, well, you guys should know, I'm a huge Comic-Con fan, so I definitely want to bring you to this. So recently, they had San Diego Comic-Con, and San Diego Comic-Con, I'm assuming everybody understands what Comic-Con is and how Comic-Con does this thing, but I'm assuming now I got to remember, not everybody's a nerd like me. All right, so every year for the big movies, Marvel, DC, all these other studios, they go to the Comic-Con convention. They have one in San Diego, one in New York, but the San Diego Comic-Con is the biggest one. And they preview all their upcoming stuff, like all the upcoming movies they have, generally for this year and for next year. But right now, you're really looking at next year's stuff in 2023 because the 2022, summer blockbuster season is essentially over. So they're looking for stuff for the end of the year and then next year. So you're promoting stuff for next year. Don't forget, you have the DCEU and the MCU. MCU did their thing. They put all this other great stuff out fine. But now the DCEU has two of their biggest movies coming out next year. And everyone was surprised because in Comic-Con, generally you'd have new trailers, you'd have panels for these things, but this year, DC didn't do that, or Warner Brothers, which owns DC, didn't do that. And they're believe that it's because of both Amber Heard and Ezra Miller. Now, with Amber Heard particularly, there's a petition with millions of signatures, like 4 or 5 million signatures, that's saying that they're not going to watch the movie if she is in the movie Aquaman 2, which is slated to come out next year. And second is that Ezra Miller. Now, you obviously know Ezra Miller has the issues. He was actually fired from Warner Brothers, but they've already shot the movie. And the movie's in the tank. So you have these two movies slated to come out. So people expected to see something about these movies, but they can't because Warner, they literally kind of like hid them. So DC did have some stuff come out. Now, this year, the studio took a directly different approach. It skipped the show floor completely, including the presence of DC Comics. And while it did use its hour-long panel in Hall H to showcase two of its 2022 releases, Black Adam, that's with The Rock, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the studio's biggest movies for 2023, Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, The Flash, were completely MIA. There was no mention of the other DC titles like Batgirl, expected to debut this year, Blue Beetle, the first Latino superhero film, nor on the future of Gal Gadot Wonder Woman and Robert Pattinson's Batman. And obviously there's some issues with whether Superman, the guy who plays Superman, is going to come back. So they essentially just said, hey, we are not, we gotta get rid of this Amber Heard and Ezra Miller issue. Because let's think about it. If you're the studio, right? If you're the studio and you have these two people, one has been found to be lying in courts all around the world, lied about being a survivor, and is the abuser themselves. I'm talking about Amber Heard. And that person's in your movie, it's like, and then you got millions of people saying, we're not going to watch the movie if she's in it. That's tough for her. And then we have Ezra Miller, who, we all know he's taken someone and the parents are looking for them. And there's 2 order protections against children for Ezra Miller. And Warner's Brothers already fired him. So they're in trouble. They got some issues. But what do you do? Like I'm asking you guys, what do you do? Because you've got 2 movies already essentially shot, millions of dollars already dumped into these projects. I think Aquaman, maybe you release with a different person. Right? Maybe you have somebody reshoot those parts with Amber Heard. But the Flash movie, he is the Flash. Like, what do you do? He literally is the main character in the movie. Do you just call it a loss? Do you send it directly to video? I don't know what you do. But you got 2 people who are not good for PR. I can imagine their Q scores. Remember in the trial, their Q scores must be nothing. So that's my update on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing. I hope people understand what was going on with the appeal. There was some confusion with some of the attorneys, but now you know.